It's my feel-good breakfast show.
We are live on SABC3. Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast. And earlier on in the show, we spoke to Zalane Mahola of Freshly Ground, who has joined forces with the South African Bone Marrow Registry to raise awareness. And we're also joined now by our resident Dr. Darren Green to get a better understanding of how bone marrow works and why someone would need a bone marrow transplant. Some very, very important things that we're talking about this morning.
Indeed.
And I'm glad that you're joining us for this conversation as well, Zolani. And we've opened up our lines, and I hope that you'll be willing to field some questions. Should we get a call on 083-9133-728? And the first thing that I want to find out about is, you know, when you think of bone marrow, you think perhaps of that delicious piece of scalp that you had with, you know, inside the bone. Is that what bone marrow is, or is it different from what it is defined as medically?
No, that's exactly what it is, but you obviously are thinking of the cooked form of bone marrow.
Yes.
Which is that, you know, that juicy, flavoursome part of the... But what people don't know is that, you know, in the shaft of the bones, you'll find, obviously, this densely packed, rich material, like what you see as when you eat, but it's actually the source of so many of the blood cells. The factory where they're made and manufactured is actually in the bone marrow. There are different hormones that stimulate that process, and that's where those stem cells actually originate from, and then they develop to go through a maturing process to actually continue and be released into the bloodstream and then perform their functions, which they have. You get white cells, red cells, platelets, and all those kind of things. So the immune system is largely dependent on these specific blood cells that have their origin in the bone marrow.
So if a person now wants to become a member or a part of the Bone Marrow Registry, what goes into the screening process?
Yeah, so the initial screening is done by a simple process by just drawing blood from the patient. You've had that done,
I have, right here on this couch, I think.
There you go. And
so
it's
they
quick.
draw blood?
It's quick. It's just like drawing blood when you go to the doctor and have screening for infection, for example. But what actually happens, and on that picture, it's
there we go. Look at that.
There's Alani there.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What happens there is that blood is then obviously sent for initial typing, and they do a screen looking at your human leukocyte antigen, which is a specific type of, you know, that categorizes you in a specific subtype.
Yes.
Once that is done, they then can look at putting you onto a registry where your stem cells, for example, are extracted from your blood. And then those, for example, are the ones that we actually type. When we have then a match, we would look then at ways of actually donating your stem cells to someone anywhere in the world that might need them for a blood cancer.
I guess the next question is twofold for me. Firstly, to you, Dr. Darren, who qualifies to be a bone marrow donor? And to you, Zolani, why would somebody want to put themselves through this perhaps rigorous process, this scary process? So let's start off with you first. Who qualifies, Dr. Darren?
So generally people that are siblings of someone that have a blood cancer that would like to become tissue matched. Obviously people that don't have HIV or have hepatitis B, that don't have a strong history, for example, of multiple piercings and tattoos because of the risks that go along with that in terms of certain conditions that are transferred via the blood. So that's also quite important. And then obviously with a specific history of certain sexual transmitted diseases as well. But generally the typing is done thoroughly in terms of the screening process where we take a proper history from the patient. And we need absolute honesty from our donors, obviously.
And then Zolani, why would one want to put themselves through this, would you say?
I think particularly if it's a family member, you know, you would put yourself through it just because of love for that person. But I think as a human being, I feel like we've got a responsibility towards each other. You know, I feel like if you're in a position that you can be of assistance or of help to somebody, you know, imagine, I don't know, it can be to some 5-year-old girl in China or in the Philippines, you know, or whatever, or in Khayelitsha or in Gugulethu, you know, who is dying from a bone marrow disorder, and you can be of service. Why wouldn't you want to save that life?
Absolutely. Wow. All right, we're going to keep our lines open. This is very, very interesting and fascinating subject matter that we're talking about on this Medical Tuesday with Dr. Darren, and of course, Zolani is also here. So stay tuned. Give us a call. We'll answer your questions and take your comments as well. Right now, let's head on over to Zoe and see what she's got.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
All right, Welcome back. We're live in studio. We're talking all about the importance of you as a South African putting yourself on the South African Bone Marrow Registry and why that is important. Dr. Darren Green is here. Zolani Mahola is also here to talk to us about that. And of course, we've opened up our lines as well. You can call us on 083-9133-728. Dr. Darren, what diseases do we need bone marrow transplants for exactly? You mentioned earlier on certain kinds of blood cancers.
Yes. So if you think about the function of bone marrow, you need to basically transplant it if yours is dysfunctional. And all the different subtypes or cell lines that occur there involve the white cells, the red cells, the platelets. So you could have cancers affecting the white cells and you get specific subtypes. A lot of detail, but you get lymphoblasts and you get leukocytes, for example. Like leukemia, leukocytes are the defective cell line.
Yes.
And then you get acute and chronic, and that just basically shows you the different subtypes. So blood cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, and then myeloma are the three big ones in big categories, which affect the plasma cells, really. That's what myeloma is. And that's where we would then need to obviously assist by transplanting so that those cells actually give you immunity and some form of immune support to your exposure.
And I guess it's through the process of the screening that you go through that it is then decided whether you are a match for the potential recipient.
Yeah, so you get tissue type, they call it, where you get put onto a registry. And that's where, for example, if they find someone that needs that specific tissue type, you then are a dial-up, kind of a yellow pages for some bone marrow, well, not bone marrow, but for stem cells. So we have a South African bone marrow registry, and then there's a European registry as well. The problem with our registry is that we have predominantly white people, to put it quite plainly, on that registry. And the people from Africa, so people of colour in our nation, are the people that are actually most at risk of not finding a donor match. Your chances are 1 in 100,000 of finding a match.
Wow. We had a question, very interesting question from a caller who asked, from what age can
from
you
18 to 45, and those are the normal guidelines. And then you must be willing to at least be on the registry until the age of about 60.
And let's talk about, we actually got a call on the line right now. Anonymous on the line. Good morning to you, Anonymous. Okay, we seem to have lost that call. We'll try and see if we can get Anonymous back on the line. Zolani and I were speaking about the process of then acquiring or extracting that bone marrow and then giving it to the would-be patient. The lumbar punch, when people hear about that, it sends chills throughout your body. Tell us about that procedure.
You didn't have a lumbar punch
at all,
hey?
I didn't.
Didn't need one. So the actual process of actually doing what's called a bone marrow biopsy is what scares most people that want to become donors. And what they don't know is that technology has now advanced to such a degree where we don't do that anymore for an initial screening or tissue typing. To get onto the bone marrow registry, it's a simple process of them just inserting a needle like you would a drip and drawing blood. That your stem cells are then filtered and put into a separate bag, basically, and then that's sent off for testing while the rest of your blood is actually pumped back into your system.
Okay. Let's take a call on the line, shall we? Good morning. Who am I speaking? I think it's Anonymous again. Thank you so much for calling us. What is your question or your comment?
Good morning.
Good morning. I can hear you, Anonymous. What is your question or
I
your
hope I'm
comment?
not shouting.
No, you're all right.
This is a call of inspiration more than a question.
Fabulous.
I had a bone marrow transplant 28 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm still here.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's amazing.
Beautiful.
That's amazing.
And that was for AML leukemia.
Yes.
It was a big shock. It was very scary. But you've got to trust the doctors and you've got to trust the process. And they didn't have the great technology they've got now 28 years ago.
Of course,
And of course, support system becomes your family.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that inspiration, Anonymous. We really do appreciate it. And, you know, we spoke about it now, and we just heard it from Anonymous right now, that, yes, it is perhaps scary, but then you think if the roles were reversed and there was somebody who was a potential donor out there, who was a match, who could save your life, would you not want them to help you?
Correct. I mean, 90% of cancers are in adulthood, but what about little children as well?
Yeah.
I mean, you think about giving that child a lease on life and a chance to actually impact the world.
Yeah, to have a future.
No one chooses to have cancer.
Ooh.
I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you,
So
Dr. Darren, I am one of
remarkable.
those people out there. I am scared, but I'll do it, man. I'll do it. I will get on that registry. We're going to come back with Dr. Darren and Zolani very shortly. Stay
Great.
tuned. Still lots more to come on your Feel Good Breakfast show.
It's my feel good breakfast show. It's my feel good breakfast show.
Alrighty then, welcome back. We're live once again on SABC3. This is your Feel Good Breakfast show for Medical Tuesday today. We're talking all things concerned with bone marrow, the South African bone marrow registry, and as well as the Sunflower Fund. That's why Elana James, the CEO of the Sunflower Fund, is joining us alongside Dr. Darren Green. And we'd like to find out, Elana, exactly what it is that the Sunflower Fund does and why it was formed.
Right, so the Sunflower Fund was formed because there was actually a group of parents whose children was in need of a stem cell transplant. And at that time, the registry only had about 6,000 donors on it. So they just started recruiting donors. What we do now, 17 years later, is we educate around the need for stem cell donors and we recruit the donors, but most importantly, we fundraise. Because for every donor we put onto the registry, as Dr. Darren was talking about, it takes one blood test. So 2 test tubes of blood, but that genetic test costs the Sunflower Fund 2,000 Rand.
Okay.
So most people can't afford to pay for their test, even though they're incredibly willing to be on the registry. So we fundraise to cover the cost of those tests, and we aim at recruiting about 8,000 to 10,000 donors a year.
A year. And how many have you done so far?
So this year or in general?
In general, since
So the registry is currently sitting at about 74,000.
74,000.
But I think what people need to remember is that firstly at the age of 60 you come off the registry.
Okay.
But also every day people come off the registry. So either they're turning 60, they pass on, they go on to chronic medication, they fall pregnant, they have to go off the registry for a short while and then they can go back on. So every day we lose. So monthly we lose about 150 donors off the registry. So
Oh,
we
my
first have
goodness.
to make up for that and then continue recruiting.
And Dr. Darren mentioned earlier on, how desperate is the need to have black donors on the registry?
It is huge. So predominantly, as you've mentioned, we have white donors on the registry, but we've seen that the ethnicity over the last year has grown quite dramatically.
That's
But
encouraging.
there's still a huge need. But, you know, there's a huge need for all donors. And I think what people need to remember is that this isn't a blood match. This is a genetic match. So we're looking for your genetic twin out there. So culture plays a huge part. So we've got a 11-month-old, for example, who is, his mom is South African Muslim, his dad's Afghanistan. We need to find that cultural match. And then we've got 13-year-old Luca, who is South African and German. We have to find that exact match.
My word.
And that's the importance of
Challenging.
everyone
Yeah.
being part of this registry.
All right, we are opening up our lines 0839133728 when we do have a caller right now. Good morning, Anonymous.
Good morning to you. My name is Rukaya, and I'd like to ask a question.
Please go
What are the symptoms of bone marrow disease?
Good question.
All right, Dr. Darren.
So it's a very broad question. As I mentioned, there's so many different cell types that are manufactured in the bone marrow. And the first thing to know is that you often will complain of tiredness and maybe even deep bone pain as one of the common symptoms. But you must remember that if your immune system and the cells that protect you are not working properly, you're going to have infections regularly. That's probably the most common symptom. And then, of course, the fatigue, depending on which cell line type we are talking about.
All right, thank you so much for that call, and we hope that that question was enlightening. And before we say goodbye to Alana, I wanted to just quickly tap into what we spoke about right now, about the process of extracting what is needed in the donation process and giving it over to the person who needs it. It doesn't happen by lumber punch anymore, so that just
not at all.
changes the entire game for me.
Yeah. So if I can very quickly tell you the process. So obviously registering is really simple. You can call our toll-free number, which is 0800 1210 82, or visit our website. All the information you need to know is there. And our recruiters will then support you with any questions, do your medical. It takes 2 test tubes of blood to go onto the registry. When you do become a donor, if you're that lucky person that's the match, what will happen is you'll go in. It's very much like donating platelets. They'll take the blood from one arm, it'll go into a cell separator machine where they'll take out your bone marrow stem cells and the rest of the blood goes back in your other arm.
Wow.
You're not hospitalized, there's no needles, there's no drilling into bones.
It sounds like a very fancy science experiment as well. That you like just watch and see happen right there. We'll be back with Dr. Darren and Alana shortly. Graham, over to you.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
And we're back again live in the studio with Alana James, CEO of the Sunflower Fund, and Dr. Darren Green for our medical chat. And we've also opened up our lines. We've got Makwele on the line, calling us from Johannesburg. Dumela Makwele?
Dumela, Kat, okay?
Kiteng okay?
Good thing. I'm very blessed. Thank you. Kat, I have actually one question. Ke kopa ho botsa, motho o nang le an iron deficiency anemia, can that person donate blood for bone marrow? Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go. Great question.
Great
so
question.
iron deficiency, can you donate?
Yeah, so low iron levels, and in this case, iron deficiency, often related to diet or absorption or malabsorption syndromes of the gut. So in this case, we would first have to correct your iron levels. You know, when you're extracting blood for donating blood, just plain blood, anemia is a contraindication. You're not allowed to. When it comes to the stem cells being harvested specifically for a bone marrow stem cell transplant, the rules differ. So you would have to be functional to the degree where the process of actually screening you and donating blood will need to be controlled. 2 tubes of blood aren't going to worsen your anemia that much. And then secondly, one would have to look and see if the cause of your iron deficiency anemia can be corrected as well to get onto the registry long term.
Yeah. Very important question, Makwele Realebocha. Now, let's quickly ask. So now that let's say I'm on the registry, the bone marrow registry, and I get a call up to say you need to come and donate blood for the bone marrow transplant. Does that mean I have to be there right now? I've got to go now.
Go.
How does it work?
No, so obviously when you are a match, it means that there is a patient in need. So timing obviously plays a huge part.
Yeah.
So the sooner, definitely the better. But there is a process they go through. So, you know, you'd need to increase your supply of stem cells, so they go through the process. You do a medical, which is just to ensure that when you registered, you are at the same health now that you were. So you'll go through a medical. You'll have a support team from the South African Bone Marrow Registry who'll go through the process with you. And at the same time, they're also preparing the patient for the stem cell transplant. To receive it. So there is quite a process that takes place. So if you get the call today, you're not going to be donating your stem cells tomorrow.
Okay, that's not Ngoku.
No.
Perhaps Ngomso.
Yeah.
Or next week, Kotwa, not Ngoku.
But they really work around your timing.
And then quickly, we want as many people as possible out there to be aware of the current campaigns that you're running as the Sunflower Fund and how they can help.
So we've got a brand new campaign that will be launching at the end of March, which is called the Human Race. And it's the most unique race ever because it's the first race for time and not against time. So that's going to be really exciting. So watch the space. We'll be launching that. And then obviously we get great support from you guys, our ambassadors like Dr. Darren Green, for our Sunflower Day campaign, which takes place in September, where we'll be launching a brand new design of taupes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here with us. And Dr. Darren Green, always thank you so much for your expertise. We really appreciate it. This has been an education for me today, and I've loved it so much, and I hope that it's been enlightening to you as well. Is it sunflowerfund.co.za?
.org.za.
.org.za.
Or our toll-free number, which is 0800 12 10 82.
Love it.
Can I leave with one message?
Quickly.
Which is there's lots you can do to support. Please register as a donor, follow our social media, but also if you can't for any reason be a donor, please can we encourage you to be a regular blood donor. Our patients are in desperate need of just blood donations as well. So we encourage all our supporters to be regular blood donors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What a spokesperson indeed. Right now, let's head on over to Leanne. Check out what's happening on social media.